What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel for another video. Today we're going to be going over Boise State's 2020 college football schedule. Now last year Boise State had another great year. They finished undefeated in the Mountain West Conference and won the conference championship for the fourth time in 7 years. And they ended up finishing the season with an overall record of 12-2 and ended the year ranked number 23 in the country. Now, this year, they have quite a bit of talent returning, including their quarterback, Hank Bachmeier, and wide receiver, Khalil Shakir. Not to mention that on the defense, they have nickel, Kekawala, Kaniho, and cornerback Jalen Walker, along with linebacker Riley Wimpy coming back. So they've got a lot of returning talent. Some of their best players are coming back, and they should be on pace to win maybe another Mountain West championship game. But they will have some tough competition this year in that conference, including Air Force and Wyoming. So after that, let's get into the predictions. First up, they'll be at home against Georgia Southern, and I don't think this is going to be a very close game. Georgia Southern is not a very good team whatsoever. And given that Boise State's going to be at home on the blue field, I don't really see them losing this game. I don't see them having much of a problem with this game. So I'm going to say that they'll get a very easy first victory of the year. Next up, they'll go on the road to Air Force. And I think this is going to be one of the most interesting games early in the year. It's going to be right there in week 2, this game along with Ohio State at Oregon. That's another one. However, I think Boise State is just slightly the better team here. This is I believe, the two best teams in the Mountain West, and I think Air Force has a good chance to win this game. They are at home. However, Boise State, I just feel they're the better team and they're going to be able to go on the road and get this win, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout for sure. This is definitely going to be one of the Broncos' closest games of the year. However, I do believe that they will get their first conference win of the year in this game. Next up, they'll be back at home against Florida State, and I think that Florida State might have a chance to come back a little bit this year. They've had a rough few years. However, this year might be the year that they can finally start competing in the ACC again. I don't expect them to win that conference. However, I do think they'll put up more of a fight against Boise State than most people are probably expecting. However, Boise State has the home field advantage, and I don't think that Florida State is quite at that top 25 level yet, so I'm going to go with the Broncos winning this home game. Next up, they'll be on the road at Marshall, and I don't think Marshall is a very good team. Boise State to me is the better team, and Marshall, they did go 8-5 last year, but I think Boise State just has enough returning talent that they won't have much of a problem on the road in this game. So I'm going to say Boise State gets a relatively easy victory here. Next up, they will be back at home against San Jose State. And San Jose State, I don't really think is one of the best teams in the Mountain West. They didn't have a great year last year, going 5-7. And I don't think they're going to do that much better this year. I think Boise State's kind of the clear favorite in this game. They're at home, and I just don't really see them having much of a challenge in this game. San Jose State isn't going to provide much competition for the Mountain West this year, so I think Boise State will have a pretty easy victory in this game. Next up, they'll be at home again against Utah State. And Utah State is one of those teams they've won one of the past 7 conference championship games. and they had a decent year a couple years ago. I believe it was 2 years ago, finishing, I believe, number 23, or they were ranked at some point last year too. So I think they're going to be a good team this year. However, Boise State's at home, and I think that they're going to be motivated in this one to get bowl eligibility. And frankly, I think that they will be able to do that. I believe they're the better team, and the home field advantage kind of solidifies this pick for me. Next up, they'll be on the road at Hawaii. And Hawaii has a chance to be one of the best teams in this conference, possibly the best team in their division. But if they're going to make the championship game, they've got to beat some of these teams, some of the good teams from the other side of the conference. And I really don't see them beating Boise State, even though they're going to be at home. I think the Broncos just have more talent, and I think they are the better team. So I really don't see them blowing out Hawaii. However, I don't see them losing this game, and I'm going to say that they get a comfortable victory. Next up is at home against UNLV, and this game doesn't really need to be talked about that much because UNLV, they're just bad, and Boise State is at home. I don't even see this game as being a possible upset. I would say 100% this is a win for Boise State. No problem whatsoever. And I think this is going to be one of their easiest games of the year, if not the easiest victory of the year. Next up is BYU. And when I think of BYU, I think of upsets because they beat the teams they're not supposed to beat, and they lose to teams they're not supposed to lose to. But somehow they always finish with a decent record, around 6 to 8 wins. So this game, I feel like, could possibly be an upset for Boise State. Now, I don't think that BYU is better than them. I think Boise State is the clear favorite in this game. I think they're the better team. They're at home. However, given BYU's history, they have been known to do things like beat Boise State. They could win this game. However, I don't really see that happening right now, so I'm going to say Boise State does get the home victory. Next up is at New Mexico, and New Mexico they're another one of those bad teams, and I don't really see Boise State losing this game, and I really just don't see them losing this game. I think they'll get to double-digit wins here without much of a problem, even though they're on the road. I just really can't see them losing this game. Next up, they'll be on the road at Wyoming, and this is a really interesting one. Wyoming has the home field advantage here, and I think that them, along with Air Force, are the only two teams that could really challenge Boise State for this conference. And I think it's definitely a possibility that Boise State loses this game, but I think that they're really just the slight favorite here. Wyoming had a decent season last year. They went 8-5, but they were at 50% in the conference. They won half of those games, 4-4. But this year, I think they'll definitely be better, and they'll put up a pretty good fight against Boise State. However, I'm going to say that as of right now, I don't think they'll win this game, but it will certainly be a close game, for sure, within 10 points. Next is at home against Colorado State. Final game of the year, and I don't really see Colorado State being the team that will beat Boise State. I can't see that happening. I think that the Broncos will finish the year undefeated, both in the conference and overall. So let's do a quick recap. I think that they won't have much of a problem with Georgia Southern, Marshall, San Jose State, Utah State, Hawaii, UNLV, and New Mexico, and Colorado State. However, there are a couple games that I think they could lose. Now, obviously, the best case scenario is undefeated. However, the worst case scenario, I think that is 9-3. Now, those 3 games that I see them losing would be at Air Force, at Wyoming, and those are the 2 conference games. Now, there's one out-of-conference game, and that is Florida State. I think that it's a good chance they could lose to Florida State. Also BYU, so it's one of those 2 games. I don't think they'll lose both, because they're going to be at home in both of those games. So, if I had to pick one, I would probably say Florida State, because I think they're better than BYU. But then again, BYU has been known to pull off upsets like this. So this is a really interesting one. I don't think they'll lose both games. The worst case scenario is 9-3. Now, looking ahead to 2021, their recruiting class is not very good. They're 113th, but it's very early, and they only have 1 recruit. So I expect that to go up, probably up into the high 50s, maybe the high 40s. And I think that overall they have a pretty bright future, and they might even be able to break out of the Mountain West at some point and possibly get into a Power 5 conference. So the future is bright for Boise State, and after that, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe, because a lot of time goes into these videos, and it's not really that hard. I'll put a button right in that lower right hand corner. All you got to do is click the logo and you'll be subscribed to the channel. Now, the next video will be UCF, and I think that it's going to be really interesting seeing how UCF and Boise State compare, because I think that both teams have a great shot to go undefeated and win their conference championship games. So it'd be really interesting to see how the fight for the New Year's Six bid for the group of 5 schools would go, especially if it was between 2 undefeated conference champions in Boise State and UCF. So make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to see that video after this one. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next one.